epic slave debates of history, abolitionists versus pro-slavery, begin!
Hi, I'm Grace, and I'm from the North. We believe slavery should be abolished, first and foremost, because of the conditions they are in. Living conditions defined means a person's life consisting of shelter, food, clothing, safety, and access to clean water. Africans prefer death over coming to America because the usual life expectancy for a slave working on a plantation was 7 to 9 years at most. In rice plantations, 66% of children slaves passed away due to inadequate food and hard work. For example, slaves had their rights taken away by not being allowed to read and write. Hands would be cut off if caught reading and writing. And here's a real-life reenactment of what would happen.
You shouldn't be writing.
No.
I'm going to tell Math.
Please don't go tell her. So I heard you were writing. Where'd you hear that from? Give me your hand. No. You know the price of it. No. Give me your hand.
And that is exactly what would happen.
My hand.
Another example was rice plantations, where slaves are forced to stand in still water in the hot sun for long periods of time. Slaves are not allowed to stop working until the quota was met, and during the time the slave is trying to reach the quota, they are usually whipped and tortured. They also have barely any clothing to keep them warm and sheltered from harsh environments. And these are just a few examples of cruel and unusual punishment towards slaves. These innocent people should not be ripped away from their homeland to come to a Christian country and be worked inhumanely to their death. Should we still be called Christians after doing these things to other humans?
Howdy pals, this is Becky, and I'm going to be talking about why slavery should continue its reigning glory in America. Listen here, these northern scoundrels have been displaying an inaccurate description about life as a slave. They make it sound worse than it actually is. There are some records of a slave living a content life. For example, Thomas Cole feels like he had a good bed to sleep in and good things to eat. He says that he would even stay in his master's house. Ismail Norris explains how they had an abundance of food supply to last them the weekly quota and how it was good foods, such as meats, flours, lard, beans, potatoes, and syrup. Wilson Woodson says he would stay at his master's house and he had plenty of clothes and proper shoes, so the slaves were well taken care of. Not only did they have the proper necessities, but the slaves would even sing out on the fields while they were cooking or cleaning. If it were true that slaves weren't content or that they were mistreated, why would they be singing songs of joy and happiness? Their field labor was less intensive once the cotton gin was invented by Eli Whitney. It helped them produce 3 times more cotton than they would do in a whole day. They had multiple agricultural tools to help them out, so they had normal farmer jobs. It wasn't as hard as it was put out to be. Not only did they get to experience the luxuries of agricultural technology advancements, but the Bible says that they will be ordained in heaven. We are bringing the eternal light of religion into their hell-like lifestyles, and we are saving their souls from the afterlife. Finally, why are we trying to abolish something that has been in their culture for a long time? Slavery was started in Africa. They sold their own people to us. We are not taking them or ripping them apart from their families. All we are doing is providing them homes and works once they get here in America.
Hi, my name is Carolina Serna, and I'm here to tell you why slavery should end in all states. Why do most slaves have scars on their backs or missing phalanges? They have missing phalanges and many whipping scars on their backs due to trying to escape because of all the mistreatment they get from the South. If slaves got treated so well, as the Northerners claim, then why did they start the Underground Railroad? The Underground Railroad was created for slaves to escape the cruelty and mistreatment of the South to gain their freedom. If the Southerners were providing jobs for the African Americans, then how come they were stripped away from their homelands and forced into labor? Now the Southerners who say slavery should continue its reigning glory in America, they might bring up the economy issue, which isn't really an issue. The Southerners could pay their workers with the surplus money that they get from the cotton gin and the surplus money that they get from all the other plants and products that they make. Instead of mistreating and forcing their workers to work for you, you can hire your own workers, not have to worry about them because they are not your property. You do not have to pay when they get injured, and you just have to pay them for working. Now, if we got rid of slavery, I'm pretty sure this would be a happy place because we wouldn't be mistreating anyone. Now, the Northerners don't have any slaves yet, and their economy isn't crashing. Now, actually having slaves will ruin our economy. For Southern states will want to trade with the Northern anti-slavery states. Not only will this affect our economy, but this will affect our country as a whole. And when our country needs to come together in times of economic depressions and wars, we need to come together as one. And for slavery, this issue is a majority issue in the United States. We will fall apart.
Hello, this is Sarah Santiago, and listen, it would be invalid and hypocritical to say our source of economic growth rode on the backs of slaves, when your economy is riding on the backs of women and children in factories. Child labor in factories up north is just as wrong, if not worse than slavery. Do you want to see real torture? Look at this child labor factory.
Ow!
Are you okay?
I think I cut myself.
You better hide that before the boss comes in.
What are you doing? Now I have to get rid of that needle, and now I have to get rid of you. And now you're wasting my time and my money.
If a child gets hurt, you fire them. But if one of our slaves get hurt, we take care of them. So who is being unfair? We at least continue to help them and provide for them. We do not pay our slaves, but we do provide them food, clothing, and medical help. All you do is pay your children and women $2 a week, and you don't supply them the necessary working conditions and benefits. So if you're using moral-based ideas and facts, it would be hypocritical of the North to do that because it is a similar concept. Your child labor is just as important as our slave labor. If it weren't for our slaves, your factories wouldn't have the necessary amount of raw goods to produce and trade with other countries. The American economy is strongly supported by the income of the South. If we cut slaves from the South, we would have such a decrease in production, America's economy would collapse. The cotton we produce goes to your factories, and without that, the northern economy would collapse also. You do not realize that you are using our slaves. You depend on our product numbers, which are all courtesy of our slave labor. Also, yes, our slaves may be running away, but that is a small number in comparison to the massive groups of unions rising in rebellion to your unsatisfactory working conditions in factories.
All in all, slavery should be abolished in all states. By that, humans should not be considered property and should not be stripped away from their homelands to be on ships with horrendous conditions. Such very bad conditions that many slaves died on the ships before reaching the Americas, and then they were sold and forced to work on terrible plantations such as rice plantations, where they stood in the sun for hours at a time.
If the slaves were treated so well, then why did they create the Underground Railroad? Why is it happening among the slaves themselves to get away from the mistreatment the Southerners have given them? our economy will collapse, and not only will it collapse due to so much production, but the pro-slavery states are not open to trading with the anti-slavery states, which is tearing our country apart when we need to be together as one, as a whole.
Abolitionists make it their jobs to criminalize us for the use of slavery, but they turn a blind eye to similar conditions to their own people. We see no wrongs in slavery because they are in fact our property, but they cannot say the same when they put their own people in harsh conditions. Not only are slaves vital to Southern economies, but they are vital to America's economy as a whole. If Northerners want to take down slavery, they are, in a sense, taking themselves down in the process.
We are doing no wrong because slavery has existed in Africa and was brought over. It is not a new concept. Also, the slaves come from a religious free life. They don't know what it's like to follow in the light of the church. We are helping them in the long run. To further on, slaves are happy in their homes, and we take care of them, and they are like children. Your own kids rebel at times, but they always come back. Are you going to set your children free too? No, you aren't. So why should we set our slaves free as well? If slavery were really that bad, why are so many people for it? Slavery is being considered more as a moral feeling than it is being seen as economic help.
Who won? You decide!